Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order this morning at 9 o'clock a.m. In the true spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge all those who call this land home now and for thousands of years in the past. May we respect each other and find understanding together and recognize the benefits that this land provides to all of us. We have one time commitment today. We have a 10 a.m. public hearing for Bylaw 24-015. Other than that, relatively short agenda today. Subdivisions and a few other items. And Councillor Zeenstra will not be joining us today. He was unable to attend. So with that, why don't we move down to our agenda and the adoption of the agenda, item B. You've been presented a proposed agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, anything pertaining to the agenda as presented? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the adoption of the agenda as presented.
Thank you, John. John has moved for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moving down, item C, adoption of the minutes. For you, you have the County Council meeting minutes of September 19th, 2024. Are there any errors, omissions, any issues arising from the minutes? Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move the adoption of the County Council meeting minutes from September 19th, 2024.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved for the adoption of the County Council meeting minutes, September 19th, 2024, as presented. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And then we can move down into our subdivision applications. We'll start D1, subdivision application 2024-0116, Fehr. Good morning, Hillary. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Council. So we have 4 subdivision applications for County Council acting as the subdivision authority to consider today. The first one is subdivision application 2024-0-116. This is for a first parcel out of a quarter section, the quarter section being the southwest 15, 10, 19 west of the 4th. The applicant is wishing to subdivide out the existing yard from the quarter section. This proposal does meet all the county's criteria for a first parcel out of the quarter. And with that, I will pass it off to Steve for the rest of the planning comments and the recommendation.
Good morning, everyone. This first application, as mentioned, is a first parcel at Farmstead from a quarter section. They're taking the yard out of the very northwest corner of the quarter, about 4.99 acres in size, to encompass the yard area there with the improvements in the tree shelter belt. As you can see that on this parcel, this is bounded on the north side by SMRED irrigation canal, and there's a county municipal road allowance on the west side of the parcel there for access. The diagram that you can see there, they're angling the east side of the parcel to align with the irrigation pivot on the adjacent agricultural land. As well, the dwelling's septic system extends out into that east area, that dry corner area outside the pivot there, is where their field is located for the dwelling. And in accordance with the provincial regulations, the sewer system has to be on the same title associated with the dwelling and can't be over the property line. So this arrangement will allow for that to be included into the yard portion of the title. In reviewing this application, there are a couple abandoned gas wells within the quarter section, but they're situated on the very east perimeter. You maybe see the well, the one up there in the very northeast corner. They're well outside any required distance and don't interfere with the subdivision in the yard, so those aren't an issue. This application overall meets your policies as the first parcel out subdivision. The parcel size yard at 4.9 acres complies with your parcel size criteria. During the circulation, there was no objections or concerns received on the application. Since I sent over the agenda report to you, We hadn't initially heard from all the utility companies, but we've since heard back from Fortis and Telus. So nobody requires an easement or has an objection to the subdivision. So on that basis, as a first parcel out subdivision in compliance with your policies, I've recommended approval to you. Just with the conditions of taxes paid and up to date, a development agreement being entered into if required, and that the final plan of survey be submitted based on any approval. The original draft had the utility company easements, but since we've heard back from them now, we don't require any easements, or they don't require any easements. But so on that basis, with those conditions, I've recommended approval to you.
Thank you, Steve. We're opening up to council for any questions you might have. Go, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This looks like a very straightforward application, so therefore I'd like to move that subdivision application 2024-0-116 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2024-0-116 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. If we move down to our second subdivision application for today, number 2, subdivision application 2024-0-115, Cage. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This second subdivision application is in the Fehr subdivision, which is located between the town of Coalhurst, or Coaldale, sorry, and the city of Lethbridge, just off of Highway 512. The application is to create 2 lots, one being 2.43 acres in size and the other being 3.7 acres in size. From that title, that is just over 6 acres. And they wish to create another lot for country residential use. This particular proposal does meet the subdivision criteria of the land use bylaw, and also it meets the area structure plan for the Fehr area structure plan, which did include the ability for each one of those larger lots to subdivide into, to subdivide once, essentially. So with that, I will pass it off to Steve for the remainder of the planning comments and the recommendation.
Yes, this next application is basically, can be described as the 6th phase of the ongoing Fehr Group Country Residential Subdivision Plan that originally commenced back in 1997 and has been ongoing for a while. As Hillary mentioned, there was an area structure plan adopted for an area. That area structure plan that was later revised in 2014, which allowed for these kind of long, elongated lots to be re-subdivided. So basically split into 2 to kind of a north-south type of lot with a panhandle access that comes in to provide access to the rear. So it doesn't show up on the photos here because it hasn't gone through and been finalized at land titles yet. But council may or may not recall, but there was on the very west 2 lots, similar application about 2 years ago, where they split those as well in the similar fashion in accordance with the area structure plan. And those are just, we're getting finished up here in the last few months, and it's been off to land titles, but it hasn't gone through the system yet, but very similar applications. So with this particular application, what they are looking to do is create basically a north lot at the north end. The south lot there, as you can see from the photo, has some improvements on there in a dwelling, while the north lot portion is largely vacant. The dividing north-south property line will align evenly with the adjacent lots to the west that I just mentioned, in accordance with the area structure plan. And as part of the proposal, this north lot will have a we'll call panhandle access on the west side, so it directly touches the internal subdivision road there, referred to as Fehr Drive, as it comes into the cul-de-sac there, which will provide their legal access to the lot. So as part of this, in the area structure plan requirements, an updated soils analysis was previously done for that north lot with favorable soils results for that it can handle an additional septic system. The original developer had prepared a drainage and stormwater management plan for this area. So as long as they adhere to that, that has been prepared for the whole area. Or if there are any changes to that in the proposal, then the county will have to review that and approve that if there's any changes made to that. So on this application, as part of the circulation out, it did require to be sent to Alberta Transportation due to Highway 512 there, where the subdivision itself and that Pater Drive takes access to the south there off Highway 512. So with that, Alberta Transportation has no issues or objections with the subdivision. Since the application went out, similar to the others, we hadn't heard back from all the utility companies. We had heard back now from ATCO Gas, and none of the utility companies required easement. So overall, the application does conform with the area structure plan that was adopted to allow this split in this fashion. And the layout was actually delineated in the area structure plan to be done this way. The lots at the lot size, the 2.43 and 3.7 acres also meet the county's land use bylaw. They exceed the minimum 2-acre parcel size. With this application as well, normally you would see a municipal reserve payment on it, but the municipal reserve had been previously paid when the previous lot was created. And in accordance with the MGA, the municipal reserve payment's only a one-time thing on the land. So since that was paid, municipal reserve is not applicable in this situation because it's already considered that that it has been paid in full to the county. So with that, no objections received on the application, and with them following the area structure plan rules, I have recommended approval to you. On the draft resolution there, originally sent out, there were 7 conditions. Taxes are paid up to date, and development agreement entered into with the county. The access easement agreement between the 2 lots. So that's just as that panhandle comes in at the approach there. The way the area structure plan was designed was that to be a shared approach, and one would go in to the right side, one would go up to their lot. So just could be a little wider there if they straddle along the property line between them. The 4th condition is that if they are making any changes for the drainage, that Lethbridge County must approve that, which has to be confirmed prior to finalization of the application. The final plan of survey has to be provided. And then the 6th condition dealt with the utility easements, and 7th was Alberta Transportation conditions, but they don't have any. They authorized that the county can go ahead and approve the subdivision. So on that basis, and in conformity with the GCR policies and the ASP, I recommended approval to you with those conditions.
Thanks, Steve. I'd open it up to council for any questions you might have. Go, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That shared driveway access on the overhead, it looks like it's actually right straddling on the property line. Is that is that designed as well to give access to the west lot?
Thank you, Councillor Kirbis, through the chair. It isn't, the property to the west will have their own driveway access, but it is, like, it looks like it's kind of encroaching, but those property, like the lines as established there, aren't necessarily 100% true. So, but that would be taken care of if at the time of development they needed to adjust something.
So the shared access agreement is just for these 2 lots that are going to be split?
That's
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mark.
I'd like to move that subdivision application 2024-0-115 be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2024-0-115 be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any discussion? I'll call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Mark. Number 3, subdivision application 2024-0-122, Van Diemen Poultry. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This next subdivision application is to subdivide out a yard out of an existing title. As you can tell, this existing title is, the quarter section is severed by Highway 25. So they are allowed to have one subdivision out of the parcel, which is the greater half. I think these ones are actually pretty equal on either side, but there is no subdivision on the northern part of the Southwest 412-19 west of the 4th. So the applicant has applied for it, and in reviewing this with Steve at Orsk, we determined that the subdivision could proceed on that basis. So what they are requesting is to subdivide out a 6-acre farmyard from this cut-off quarter section title, which consists of just under 80 acres. It is located just a half-mile west of the hamlet of Turin, as you can kind of see in my photo here. With that, since it conforms to the subdivision criteria of the land use bylaw, I will pass the rest of the comments and recommendation to Steve.
Yes, this application, as described, is to subdivide an existing farmyard out in the south portion of the quarter section on the south half of the cutoff parcel. That south half is slightly larger, a few acres than the north half. This quarter section was bisected by both the CPR rail line and Highway 23. Highway 25, which created the parcel title and the way it is. The parcel itself and the yard takes its physical access on the south side from a South County Road and not direct to the highway. For what the applicants are looking at, they're looking to subdivide out the yard, which contains a dwelling shop and some other outbuildings. As you can see there, the existing yard is a bit square in shape, but what they're proposing is more of an angled yard. And the reason for that is they've added an irrigation pivot onto this quarter section. So the way it's designed is kind of follows the boundary of the windshield wiper of the pivot, the way it goes there, as you can see in that drawing there. They're removing some trees in the northwest corner in order to account for the irrigation pivot on there, and reconfiguring the yard shape to account and accommodate the pivot on the land to try to maximize the area under the pivot. The existing yard is fully serviced. The on-site septic system is located north of the dwelling, and it will remain within the confines of the property boundaries once it's subdivided with that angled property line there. In reviewing the application, there's no abandoned gas wells that affect the parcel. There is a confined feeding operation located north, on the north side of the highway, approximately 908 meters to the north of the residence. The CFO is capped out at its location due to the number of residences around it and the hamlet of Turin as well, so they can't expand there. So with that cap, the MDS that applies is 815 meters is applied, and with this application be at 908 meters, they're outside of that MDS that would be applied anyways, regardless if there was a cap or not. But even if it was a scenario where that cap wasn't there or they didn't meet the distance, this yard has been here since the late 1950s, so it would fall under your other policy where if it's a pre-existing prior to the CFO, the MDS is not applied. But in this case, they meet the distance anyway, so that's not an issue. So in part of this application, it does comply with the policy as a farmyard come out of the greater half of a cut-off severed title. The proposed 6-acre does align with your policy of having a minimum 2 acres and not to exceed 10 acres in size. And the remnant land in the end as well will exceed the minimum 70-acre agricultural parcel size. So with that, there was no objections or concerns received on the application. Alberta Transportation has no concerns with the application because it does not have direct access off the highway and they take their access off the local road. Since the report was sent out to you, we've heard back from TELUS, Fortis, ATCO, and Alberta Health Services. None of the utility companies require an easement. With this application, the municipal reserve payment is applicable because due to the fact that there are 2 titles in the quarter section, north and south of the highway. So the applicant would have to pay on the 6 acres municipal reserve payment to the county, which in this case would equate to about $6,000. The value out in this area came back at $10,000 per acre. So with that, and on the basis that the application is deemed to conform to the county subdivision policies, recommended approval to you on the basis that the municipal reserve payment is made to the county, and then the 4 conditions there: taxes paid up to date, development agreement entered into if required, final plan or surveys provided based on your approval, and then the 4th was that any easements as necessary be established.
Thank you, Steve. I'd open up to council for any questions or discussion you might have. Coalhurst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a 2-part question, I guess.
Yeah.
If it wasn't 2 titles already, would you still have to pay the municipal reserve?
No.
And can you make another subdivision on the other side of the highway on the other title? No?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, it just allows the one from the greater half, so. Yeah.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Klaus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that subdivision application 2024-0-122 be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, Claus. Claus has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2024-0-122 be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Claus. And our final one of today, number 4, subdivision application 2024-0-117, Mercer. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For this last subdivision application, this is a reconfiguration of 2 existing titles located in the southwest 33-921 west of the 4th and the northwest 28-921 west of the 4th. This area is just to the north of the city of Lethbridge and directly west of Highway 843. Sorry, I'll scroll out a little bit so you can get some context here. It's along the road that's the road to the landfill, so just in case somebody needs some directions there, that's kind of where we're at. What they are requesting is to reconfigure these 2 titles to create just under 5 acre title acreage and the 136 acre title from an existing 46 and 95 acre title each. You can kind of see how they're currently split. There's the SMRID canal on the east side of this development, and they wish to consolidate the agricultural lands together, and then you can see the dry corner in the northwest there that they want to take out and have as a yard. With that, it does comply with the county's subdivision criteria for reconfiguration of titles, and I will let Steve go through the rest of the comments in the recommendation.
Yeah, this final application this morning is what's classified as reconfiguration of title subdivision. The owner currently has 2 adjacent separate certificates of title, and they're looking to arrange those. So largely, one's getting bigger and one's getting smaller in the end through the subdivision and consolidation of land. So in this particular case, they're looking to put under one title the larger irrigated agricultural land and the land that's under the irrigation pivot, and in turn make that north parcel smaller, and basically shrink it back to the very northwest corner to create a 4.99 acre vacant residential acreage title for a future yard there in the corner. The proposed acreages, southeast side is being angled, so it encompasses the area of the dry pivot corner and the area outside the pivot there. The applicants are proposing that future residents would be serviced just by their own private cistern haul system and on-site septic field for sewage. One of the things with this application is it is in the area of the proposed future Canamex, which would just occur to the south of the yard area, largely kind of the dividing line between the two existing parcels. Alberta Transportation, in the communication with them and in the subsequent referral letter they sent, are concerned with the reconfiguration here. The land, if the Canamex goes ahead there, would be bisected anyways, and the area of the yard they're taking out, they said, is well outside the area of the Canamex, and they have no concerns and no objections to the subdivision proceeding. This application is always also within the IDP boundary between the county and city of Lethbridge. This application is deemed to be in alignment with that IDP, which allows the county to approve subdivisions based on your agricultural subdivision policies, which this reconfiguration of land does. And as well, during the referral process, the city had no objections to the application. One of the other things with this application is there is a confined feeding operation located just to the north and west of this. The old City Packers feedlot, which is now KCL, I believe. So that is a grandfathered CFO for 75 head of beef finishers. They can't expand at that location due to the number of residences around in the area. So in this situation, an MDS of 611 is applicable to beef operation that size. Measuring from the closest point of the feedlot to the northwest corner of the parcel itself comes in at about 594 meters. But looking at the location for a dwelling with that corner piece there and the setbacks applied to the county's road to any residents both at the north and on the west side, the residents would be set back 622 meters or more, so it would be outside that 611 meter distance. As well, with the 4.9 acres, if they wanted to push it further back, they'd have enough room to do that as well. But in the end, the dwelling with meeting the county's required setbacks would be outside that 611 meter MDS distance. So, as part of the referral of this application, ATCO Gas did request an easement for a gas line on this application. There were no other objections or concerns or requests for easements received in this application as well. Besides the conditions that the taxes be paid up to date and development agreement entered into, the applicants were required to do a soils analysis on that 4.99 acre lot in the northwest corner just to confirm suitability for an on-site septic system. The fourth condition would be that consolidation of land by plan of survey would have to be done. So we end up with just the two titles in the end and not an extra title. And then ATCO Gas requires the easement for the fifth condition. And then the other applicable condition in this is that municipal reserve would be applicable. And that's due to the fact that this area is, and you can see from the quarter section there, a number of subdivisions and reconfigurations that have taken place along the canal there and the way the road network is. So to go to the smaller 4.99 acre country residential title, they would need to provide municipal reserve to the county on that, which they were made aware of prior to applying. And that value came in at $15,000 per acre. So the approximate value of municipal reserve on their parcel would be $7,485 would have to be paid to the county for a municipal reserve payment on the 4.99 acre piece. The other parcel is exempt because it's agricultural and exceeds 40 acres in size. So on that basis, and with the application determined to comply with your reconfiguration of titles policies, the parcel sizes comply, and it complies with the IDP. Recommended approval to you based on those outlined conditions.
Thank you, Steve. I'll open up to council for any questions or any discussion you might have. Coalhurst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a question on the size of the 4.99 acres. I thought on areas that did not have any structures on them, we were limiting to 3. Is there a reason why we went above?
Yeah, Reeve, through Councillor Hickey's question through the Reeve, that just in this case, because it's not a straight alone parcel coming out of the course, it is a reconfiguration. They currently have the 46 acre title. So as a reconfiguration, they're basically shrinking that boundary back to the 4.99. They're not creating a new standalone vacant title. It's that existing title is just getting smaller in the adjustment that's happening, is the reason for that. So it's different than the normal circumstances of just a 3 acre vacant coming out.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would move the subdivision application 2024-0-117 be approved.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2024-0-117 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you.
Moving our agendas to item F1, Development and Infrastructure. We have 3 items this morning. F1.1, Bylaw 24-016 to redesignate Plan 9011051, Block 1, Lot 1 in the Southeast 3922 West 4 from rural agriculture to rural general industrial. First reading. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. So we have received an application to redesignate, oops, let me get to the right report here for you first. There we go. To redesignate Plan 9011051, Block 1, Lot 1 in the Southeast 3922 West of the 4th from rural agriculture to rural general industrial. This particular parcel is located just to the north of Highway 3. And it's also kind of to the northwest of what we call the hamlet of Kip. It's not really a hamlet, it's a house, but it is the area of Kip, south of the CP marshalling yards. The applicant does wish to redesignate this to rural general industrial as they want to relocate their trucking company. They have a long haul trucking company. They wish to relocate it to this particular parcel. This application does meet the requirements of the intermunicipal development plan with the town of Coalhurst and the Lethbridge County Municipal Development Plan and the commercial industrial land use strategy, as this area has been not obviously already designated, but could be designated to industrial uses just because of the proximity to the highway and also to the proximity to an existing industrial area, which is the Kip marshalling yards. As you can see, the purple area denotes the industrial zoning for those lands to the north of this parcel. As this is first reading of the bylaw, the first reading will just allow for us to set the public hearing date and also send out the notices to the adjacent and affected landowners, and also advertise the public hearing in the Sunny South News and on our website and social media sites. So with that, I have recommended that County Council proceed with the first reading of Bylaw 24-016. And I'll put it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Hillary. I'd open up to council for any discussion. Go, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given that this is first reading and we will have a public hearing on this, I'd like to move that bylaw 24-016 be read a first time.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that bylaw 24-016 be read for a first time. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, John. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you.
Item F1.2, speed limit reduction request. I'm just gonna hand these off quick, Devin.
Thank you very much.
And thanks, Dennis, for getting a nice odor in our area.
A nice, sorry?
Thanks for getting a good odor in our area.
Isn't that the smell of money? I heard that.
That's the way to say it.
Maybe a different smell.
Morning, Devin. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. Good morning. So today I'm bringing forth a request that has been submitted to County Council to provide a letter of support for a speed limit reduction on Highway 843 just north of the town of Coaldale. So I've got it up on the map here. It's pretty much this area where my cursor is, kind of starting at the southerly boundary of Southeast 22 extending to the northerly boundary. The developer is seeking the current 100 kilometer an hour speed zone to be reduced to 70 kilometers an hour for a length of 750 meters. This portion of roadway is under the jurisdiction of Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors, or ATEC, and any required upgrades to highway infrastructure is at the discretion of ATEC. The typical process that we follow when there are proposed developments is to ensure all affected stakeholders are given the opportunity to comment and provide feedback on the proposal. The developer can, if they choose to do so, proactively consult with affected stakeholders before submitting a permit to the county. In some instances, these stakeholders will require upgrades to their infrastructure to accommodate the proposed development. It is our understanding that ATEC will require intersection upgrades due to the increased traffic volumes through the construction of acceleration and deceleration lanes. Due to these requirements, the developer would like to reduce the speed limit in lieu of these intersection upgrades. It has been administration's practice to help facilitate discussions between developers and stakeholders if required, but we always remain neutral in these situations and let the developer and the stakeholder come to a consensus together. So with that, the recommendation before you today is that County Council does not send a letter of support for a speed limit reduction on Highway 845. And the reasoning is we feel the county should continue to remain neutral in these situations and not interfere with other stakeholder requirements. There are several situations where ATEC requires developers to upgrade infrastructure, and providing a letter of support could set a precedent moving forward. Alternatively, County Council could send a letter of support, which would obviously lessen the burden of a county developer, but it could also strain relations with our external stakeholders and create expectations for other developers moving forward. So with that, I will put it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Devin. For those, I was contacted by Brody Curtis. Brody is the acting manager on behalf of Sunnyside Farms Limited. Brody put this forth to council for our consideration, and as you can see from the pictures, so where the turnout to go into the piling grounds at the Coaldale sugar beet dump, that is the quarter section we're talking about. They are actually currently moving earth in the southeast corner right off the highway. for this development where they plan to construct their potato storage. So I conferred with Cole, and we thought this was the best way forward to present this to council. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to add at this point. I would open up to council for any questions or discussion that you might have. Quite cool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just comment that the nature of how this was sent directly to council is why we put it on the agenda, as I imagined either some of you or all of you would or have heard about this request and their desire to gather a number of signatures. Typically, we would view this as a technical review and more on the administration side and not a political request. We don't have the necessary information from a technical standpoint to make a recommendation based on the traffic volumes, the safety implications, the traffic types, and what those unintended consequences may be. Just to reiterate what Devin stated, I think there are a variety of avenues. I know that Coaldale has some traffic plans, and I have discussed that with them, that there could be alternative routes for them to minimize some of that cost or pursue alternatives. We're happy to arrange some of those discussions, but we really do feel that as far as they do not impact our roadways from a technical standpoint, that we don't have adequate information to make a recommendation, nor should we be advising. And I'm quite concerned about the unintended consequences of every developer wanting to see a reduction, and without set parameters, what is that expectation? What precedent is set as a result of that? So I just wanted to highlight that as why this makes it challenging. We don't want to be a barrier to business. We want to see development. We want to see people make money. We want to see people lower their costs. I can completely appreciate that. I just don't know that that's our role in this particular development.
Cool. Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would kind of echo that. I mean, it's, you know, with the information that's presented to us, it's basically, this is something that that is a request being forwarded to us without a whole bunch of, you know, background and information that I think would be prudent for us to have if we were to make a decision of this. And my second comment on this is a provincial highway, so it is outside of our jurisdiction. And for us to provide a letter of support for something like this without a significantly larger amount of information presented to us, it just doesn't seem to be the prudent thing to do.
Go ahead, Klaus.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with the recommendation there. I think that stretch is long enough. We're going to make it just about 3/4 of a kilometer longer yet. And, you know, I think that is just going to be a reason for a lot of like police and stuff like that to stand there and have an easy way to ticket more people, because it's obviously done quite a bit there already. So I want to move that county council does not send a letter of support for the speed limit reduction on Highway 8.
And there was a suggestion of dropping the speed limit down. So that's between the developer and the highway, or the province, correct? That's
correct.
So that, again, like as John has said, it's outside of our purview. So yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Good point, John. Yeah.
Because this would be a negative, is that something?
I don't think we have to make a motion. I would, regardless, Claus, if you want to make that motion, that's fine, but I would concur, John, we don't have to make a motion. However, I would suggest either way that perhaps we should, I would feel better, as this was addressed to Reeve and Council, if we could communicate back with a letter indicating the rationale of our decision today. But I would leave it up to Claus if you want to let that motion stand, or if you want to withdraw it, it's up to you.
I think I'll withdraw my motion, but I think that, you know, if you reply to it, that would be sufficient enough.
Okay. Do you want to make that a motion, maybe, that we send a letter under the Reeve signature?
Yeah, okay. Then I'll rescind the motion that I had, and I'll make another motion that council forward a letter to who was that at?
Thanks,
The developer, that we will not support their recommendation.
Okay. Sorry, John? Did you have something?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion? Does that work, Cole? Okay. Okay, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Okay, we can move down then. F1.3, Town of Coalhurst ACP application, letter of support, regional recreation pathway study.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Town of Coalhurst has requested that County Council provide a letter of support for an Alberta Community Partnership grant application. The purpose of this application is to receive adequate funding to conduct a regional recreational pathway study. The town has identified regional recreation as a priority and would like to explore options to potentially provide a pathway that connects Coalhurst with the city of Lethbridge. This letter of support does not commit County Council to any capital or maintenance expenditures, rather just provides the town with support required to secure grant funding for the study. The town of Coalhurst has worked with the county in the past on regional initiatives and would like to continue collaborating with the county on this study. The primary focus of the study would include regional pathway functionality study, preliminary pathway design, pathway route options with identified advantages and disadvantages, analysis of logistical and regulatory requirements to cross Highway 3, and updating the 10-year capital plan. The financial impact, as I mentioned, the county does not have to contribute any funds towards this study, and the town's budget is proposed at $200,000, in which this grant would cover 100% of that. With that, my recommendation before you today is that County Council support the Town of Coalhurst's managing partner submission of a 2024-2025 Alberta Community Partnership grant application in support of the Regional Recreational Pathway Study Project. There is no matching contribution required, and the reason for this recommendation is to provide an opportunity for a regional partner to explore potential enhancements for their recreational service delivery. An alternative, County Council could deny sending the letter of support. I don't really have a pro identified, but if we don't, that may strain relations with the town. And with that, I will pass it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Devin. I'd open up to council. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that this is a perfect opportunity for us to work with our smaller urbans within our county boundaries and demonstrate to Coalhurst that we are happy to help them and assist them in their successes. So therefore, I would like to move that the County Council support the Town of Coalhurst as a managing partner for their submission of the 2024-2025 Alberta Community Partnership Grant application in support of the Regional Recreation Pathway Study Project.
Thank you, John. Is there any further discussion? John has moved the recommendation. The County Council supports the Town of Coalhurst as the managing partner submission of a 2024-25 Alberta Community Partnership Grant application in support of the Regional Recreation Pathway Study Project. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Thank you, Council.
Thanks, Devin. We do have a public hearing at 10 a.m. this morning, so if there's no objections, why don't we take a 10-minute recess and we'll reconvene for Ready when you are, Candace? Ready. Thank you, Candace. We'll resume our public meeting at 10:03. This brings us to item E1 in our agenda. We have a public hearing for today for Bylaw 24-015. So with that, I will recess the regular meeting. We are here today to hold a public hearing for Bylaw 24-015, redesignate a portion of the Southwest 11022 west of Fehr from rural agriculture to rural recreation. A public hearing is being held. I would ask for a motion to open the public hearing. Claus has moved to open the public hearing at 10:04 a.m. this morning. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. The public hearing is being held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act as amended. The public hearing is being live streamed via the county's YouTube page. With that, the public hearing for Bylaw 24-015 is now officially open. I will now ask the Manager of Planning and Development to review the nature of the hearing and provide an overview of what is being proposed. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Council. As we had first reading for Bylaw 24-015 on September 5th, County Council is aware that we have received the application to rezone a portion of the Southwest 11022 west of the 4th from rural agriculture to rural recreation. The intent of the rezoning is to allow for the development of the parcel for an equestrian facility and rodeo grounds. The applicant, this application was sent to all of the county departments and external agencies for review. The pertinent comments, I have put them in my report, but I'll kind of outline them, specifically the ones from Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors. Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors, the applicant did send in a traffic impact assessment, which Alberta Transportation did review and has accepted. And that was to the traffic impact assessment showed that the intersection the approach into the parcel would be changed from the current location where it is on the curve, and it would be moving further to the southwest, so kind of more central to the parcel. This would provide for better sight lines and better access for incoming and outgoing traffic to the proposed rodeo grounds. Alberta Transportation has indicated that those intersection improvements, including the moving of that intersection, would need to be constructed and in place prior to the opening of the facility. They didn't have any objections other than that. And I will just note that in addition to sending them the rezoning application, the applicant did also have the development permit application, which also went to Alberta Transportation. So that's why the comments are a little bit more in depth than they typically are. Alberta Transportation will require that they also get their own permit from them, just to ensure that it's that approach is constructed to their standards, and that any improvements to the highway system are done in accordance with their requirements. All other agencies that were contacted, including ACO, TELUS, and the Lethbridge Northern Irrigation District, had no concerns with the proposed application. From an administrative review perspective, this parcel was previously used for farming purposes. There was a confined feeding operation for chickens on the parcel. The parcel has about 25 acres of developable land, even though it's about just under 40 acres in total size. As you can see in the air photos that we have, there is 2 significant draws going into this that tie into the Old Man River, and so that impacts the developable area of the parcel. So the land is somewhat marginal in terms of agricultural use. And the proposed rezoning would allow for a higher and better use of the parcel moving forward. In addition, the nature of the proposed zoning for the equestrian and rodeo grounds is anticipated to be more similar to a commercial use, and so the industrial commercial land use strategy would come into play. And this particular parcel would comply with that, as the parcel is in proximity to the highway. It has all adjacent or all the required utilities, and would be compatible with the adjacent land uses, as obviously an equestrian and rodeo grounds would have livestock, which is similar to what the adjacent lands currently have. So the proposed rezoning is in compliance with our siting criteria, both through the industrial land use strategy and also the municipal development plan. We did send out a notice for the public hearing, and it was advertised in the September 10th and 17th editions of the Sunny South News, and posted on the county's website and social media accounts. There was only one comment that came in, as noted in your agenda package, from a landowner just to the south of Diamond City, whose main concern was that of the access into the parcel. And as I mentioned, Alberta Transportation has required that that access be relocated, and that would, it can be a condition of obviously a rezoning, but it can be a condition of the development permit that would have to be done prior to the opening of the facility as to support Alberta Transportation's comments. Other than that, no other comments or concerns were received as a result of the notices that were sent out. So that concludes my report for council, and I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Hillary. This is council's opportunity to receive input from the public. Those making presentations are asked to state their name and review their points. We ask that you refrain from asking questions to council. The intention of the public hearing is not to debate or defend the contents of the bylaw or the position which individual councillors may have on the bylaw. Questions asked of a councillor by a presenter may be ruled out of order. Presentations to council will start with the applicant who has made the submission, followed by any other persons wishing to comment on the proposal. Please keep your comments to the point. After each speaker, members of council will be permitted to ask questions of the presenter to clarify any details. No debating or questions from the floor will be allowed. At this time, I would ask if there's anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw.
Just for your knowledge, the applicant is not here either. So.
Okay, thank you, Hillary. Is there anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? And for a third time, is there anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? Seeing none, if there's nothing further, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Go ahead, Klaus.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Klaus has moved to close the public hearing at 10:10 a.m. this morning. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I would open it back up. Hillary, is there anything further you'd like to add?
No, Mr. Chairman, I do believe I've covered everything off in my report, but if there's any discussion, I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Hillary. I'd open it up to council. Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a question, would they have to take out that approach on the corner? Or how does that person get access to that other little piece of land then?
Thank you, Councillor Hickey, through the chair. So the LNID is the owner of that parcel directly to the east. So there would have to be, if they were to put in a new approach, they would probably have to, there's probably an easement from the LNID to gain access to their title. That would probably have to be discussed with them to ensure that they have maintain access to their particular parcel, as it's not on their parcel, it's adjacent to. That access doesn't actually go into touch their parcel, but that would be something that would probably be Alberta Transportation's purview to see if they would want that approach removed. Typically, they don't want to have too many approaches on the highway. My experience is that they would likely request that the approach be removed. And then they'll also have to work with CP Rail on the relocation of the approach just to ensure, because it has to obviously move down the track there. So, but that would be a condition of Alberta Transportation as to whether or not that existing approach would or would not be removed.
Any other questions? Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that bylaw 24-015 be read a second time.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that bylaw 24-015 be read for a second time. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Clause.
And I'd like to move that bylaw 24-015 be read a third time.
Thank you, Clause. Clause has moved the recommendation that bylaw 24-015 be read for a third time. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried as well. Thanks, Hillary.
Thank you.
We have one more item, or sorry, several more, 3 more items, I guess, but under F2, Corporate Services, F2.1, we have a tax penalty waiver request, Albion Ridge Farms Limited. Morning, Jen.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Council. Thank you. So I have before you a tax waiver requesting the amount of $431. We received a letter, or were contacted on September 12th, followed by a letter with regards to some penalties that were applied on a tax roll. It is a bit of a unique compared to some of the other requests we get. So Mr. Dykstra had contacted the county after receiving notice that a penalty had been applied to his account. He had received tax notices in the mail, but they were for the colony with the same name or similar name, Albion Ridge, and were not his own. So he kindly handed those tax notices over, but I'm not sure if he was waiting to receive some from the county, but did not contact the county, to my knowledge, prior to this date after receiving the penalty. So he has made a request to have those penalties waived because of the, I guess, mailing error that took place. So there were two penalties in total amount of $431 that have been applied to date. So, of course, as per the Municipal Government Act, Council does have the authority to cancel or reduce or refund a part of or all taxes. And because tax penalties are applied per bylaw, we've brought this request forward to Council.
Thank you, Jen. Go ahead, Klaus.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So he, according to the letter, he sent it back to the post office. Did you guys get it from the post office back, or did that not happen?
Councillor Vanderveen, through the chair, my understanding is that he hand-delivered the notices to the colony. He didn't send it back to the post office.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So he got a letter with the tax notices, but the tax notices were not his. And as a result of that, his action was to hand deliver the tax notices to the rightful party, but never contacted us to say, hey, I didn't get my tax notice.
I'm not aware that he was contacted, and I'm presuming that because penalties were applied, he didn't contact us. I think the envelope, my understanding is the envelope was addressed to him, but the information inside was for the colony.
Okay.
It is a bit unique compared to some of the other ones we've received in the past.
Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. So did we ever figure out where his actual tax notice went, or it didn't go to the colony, or we don't know, but it went out, but?
I'm assuming it did go out, and I don't know, maybe it was combined in that package. I couldn't say. I know, not to throw Canada Post under the bus or anything, but I know we have had some issues with them of late, with mail getting delivered. In fact, today we just received some mail from September 18th. So there's been a lot of delays with Canada Post recently. But he did receive his penalty notices, so I can't say honestly what happened with the original tax notice. We didn't get it returned, I know that.
Thank you, Jen. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize that we deal with this every year, but could you refresh us of what the delivery procedure is and how we handle whether it's perceived to be delivered or not?
Yeah, so we, for the notices, we prepare them for mailing, and the mailing date has to align with the date that is on the tax notice so that the opportunity to speak with the assessor or file a complaint dates line up per the Municipal Government Act. And as per the Municipal Government Act as well, it is deemed received, I believe it's 7 days, but don't quote me on that, by mail, or if we don't have it returned. And if a tax notice is returned, we keep all of them and try to contact the property owner to identify if they have a new mailing address or if the ownership has changed, because sometimes land titles doesn't align with the dates in which the notices are going out. So when it's mailed, if it's not returned to the county, it's presumed delivered.
Sorry, and just to follow up on that, in this particular situation, was his tax return, or tax notice returned to the county?
No, I don't believe so, because we would have resent it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, in my, what I think about it is probably, his probably went to the colony, I would assume. The colony probably thought it's not mine, so gone. So, and he hand-delivered it to the county, to the colony. So that would mean that he would await another letter from the county that he had to pay his taxes. But it's past July 31st, then normally you should probably think, hey, I didn't pay my taxes. Maybe I should contact the county and see what's going on. So with that, I think that the county council not waive tax penalties in the amount of $400.31 as requested for the 24 tax rolls titled to Albion Ridge Farms Limited.
Thank you, Klaus. Is there any further discussion? Klaus has moved the recommendation the council not waive tax penalties in the amount of $400.31 as requested for the 2024 tax rolls titled to Albion Ridge Farms Limited. No further discussion. I'll call a question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried.
Thank you.
Jen, is this the last time we get to see you in that chair?
Likely, yeah. So, it's been a pleasure, thank you.
Thanks, Jen. We have two pieces of correspondence today. Item 1, the Covenant Foundation Harvest Moon Ball sponsorship. Cole, do you mind if I throw to you for that one?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was a late request and addition. Otherwise, we would have brought it forward as a report. So the Covenant Foundation did reach out specifically to the county. They have their Harvest Moon Ball that is occurring at in Lethbridge County at the Norland, and requested either. It was a fairly generic. It was either a sponsorship, attendance, or a recommendation or referral to other businesses to help fill their sponsorship packages. I do see a lot of value in the work that Covenant does. We have had discussions and meetings with them around further investment in the region pertaining to things like Covenant Wellness from a rural standpoint. However, if council wished to attend the event, I think that there's a lot of value in that. However, to support sponsorship for a organization that receives the majority of their funding of public funds provincially, to then ask a local municipality to support that as a transfer, it would be hard for administration to make that recommendation from a sponsorship standpoint. But I do see value in the attendance, in the networking opportunities, and what that could mean for further investment and growth of the work that Covenant does in Lethbridge County.
Thank you, Cole. Klaus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So is this the first time that county got this invitation? Because I don't recall that we've had it other years.
Yes, it's the first time the county got the invitation, and I think it was likely a result probably of people from Covenant knowing me from a past life and reaching out, and also I believe it's the first time, to my knowledge, that it's been hosted in the county.
Can I recommend you for one of the sponsors?
Personally, you can respectfully through the chair, you could recommend whatever you would like. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Cole. Is there anything anyone would like to add to that, or if there's anyone, is there anyone who would be interested in attending? Okay, we can move on to our second item 2, MD Willow Creek. What do we have here? The Municipal District of Willow Creek, number 26, Ag Service Board is pleased to invite you to the 31st Legacy of Our Land Banquet, an annual event dedicated to celebrating and honoring agricultural producers in our community. This evening serves as a recognition for their vital role in shaping and sustaining our local agricultural industry. The event date is November 1st, 2024 at the Staveley Community Center. Doors open at 5 with prime rib dinner to follow. As a valued neighboring community, the ASB would like to extend 2 complimentary tickets to your town, county, or municipal district for a special evening. Kindly notify the MD the names of the 2 representatives you wish to send, and we'll have their tickets available please RSVP by the 25th of October. Okay. Is there anything that anyone would like? I believe members of council have attended this in the past. Is there anything? Yeah.
Before COVID.
Yeah.
It's a great thing.
So we do have.
Didn't you hear it go last year? Didn't Eric go last year? I didn't know.
Eric might have, I'm not sure yet. So we do have the 2 complimentary tickets. If you're interested, coordinate with Candace and we'll take care of that. Good. And with that, that brings us to the conclusion of the public part of our agenda. Is there anything else? All right, why don't we take a 10-minute recess, and then that'll allow Lauren and Mark and John to just convene with Hillary quick on that selection committee, and then we will reconvene and enter our closed session, let's say at 10:35, let's plan for. we'll call our meeting back to order at 10:33 this morning. We are down to the last item on our agenda, item I, our closed session. We have one item, the CAO report, CBEC, FOIP section 16, 17, 23, and 24. I'd entertain a motion to enter a closed session. Clause is moved to enter closed session at 10:34 a.m. this morning. Any discussion? I'll call the question.